Friends, neighbors, fellow seekers of the shadowed corners of our collective memory, gather close. Tonight we delve into a tale that chills the blood, a legend whispered in hushed tones around campfires, a phantom that haunts the fringes of our childhood fears. The Maniac Cropsey. Cropsey. The very name evokes a primal dread, a sense of something lurking in the dark, something ancient and malevolent. But who or what is Cropsey? Is he a mere fabrication, a boogeyman crafted to keep unruly children in line? Or is there a kernel of truth buried beneath the layers of folklore, a dark reality that refuses to fade? Let's begin by tracing the roots of this chilling figure. Cropsey, as a legend, is deeply entrenched in the folklore of the New York metropolitan area, particularly Staten Island. He is often depicted as a disfigured or deformed man, a recluse living in the shadows of the abandoned mental institutions, the overgrown parks, and the forgotten corners of our urban landscape. The earliest accounts of Cropsey often paint him as a simple bogeyman, a cautionary tale told to children. Be good, or Cropsey will get you. This simple warning, however, quickly evolved into something far more sinister. Stories began to circulate of a deranged escape patient, a former orderly, or even a demonic entity lurking in the woods, preying on unsuspecting victims. One of the most persistent narratives ties Cropsey to the abandoned Willowbrook State School, a former institution for children with intellectual disabilities. This location, notorious for its history of abuse and neglect, became a breeding ground for the Cropsey myth. The decaying buildings, the overgrown grounds, and the lingering sense of sorrow created the perfect backdrop for a terrifying legend. It is said that Cropsey, in some versions of the tale, was a former employee of Willowbrook, driven mad by the horrors he witnessed. In others, he was a patient himself, scarred by the institution's brutality. Regardless of his origin, he is always depicted as a figure of immense cruelty, a predator who stalks his victims with relentless determination. The details of Cropsey's appearance vary, adding to his unsettling nature. He is often described as having a disfigured face, perhaps burned or scarred, a testament to his tormented past. He might carry a hook, an axe, or some other implement of terror. He is a creature of the shadows, blending seamlessly into the darkness, emerging only to claim his next victim. The stories of Cropsey are not merely tales of terror, they also reflect deeper anxieties within our society. They tap into our fear of the unknown, our fear of the marginalized, and in our fear of the dark corners of our own humanity. The abandoned institutions, the decaying parks, these are places where society's unwanted and forgotten are relegated. Cropsey becomes a symbol of these forgotten souls, a manifestation of our collective guilt and unease. The legend of Cropsey, however, took on a chilling new dimension in the real world. In 1987, Jennifer Schweiger, a 12-year-old girl with Down syndrome, disappeared from her Staten Island neighborhood. Her disappearance sparked a massive search, but Jennifer was never found. The community was gripped by fear, and the legend of Cropsey took on a terrifying new relevance. The whispers began. Could Cropsey be real? Could he be responsible for Jennifer's disappearance? The lines between myth and reality began to blur. Then, in 2005, the remains of Jennifer Schweiger were discovered in a shallow grave near the grounds of the abandoned Willowbrook State School. The discovery sent shockwaves through the community, confirming their worst fears. The investigation led to Andre Rand, a homeless man with a history of mental illness and a connection to Willowbrook. Rand, who had been living in the abandoned buildings, became the prime suspect in Jennifer's murder. Rand's history was disturbing. He had been convicted of kidnapping in the past, and his behavior was erratic and unsettling. He was a figure who seemed to embody the very essence of the Cropsey legend. The trial of Andre Rand was a media sensation. The prosecution presented evidence linking Rand to Jennifer's disappearance, including his proximity to the crime scene and his history of violence. The defense argued that Rand was a scapegoat, a convenient target for a community desperate for answers. Ultimately, Rand was convicted of Jennifer Schweiger's murder, as well as the murder of another missing woman, Holly Ann Hughes. He was sentenced to life in prison, bringing a sense of closure to a community that had been haunted by fear and uncertainty. But even with Rand's conviction, the legend of Cropsey persists. The story has been immortalized in documentaries, books, and films, ensuring that the name Cropsey will continue to evoke fear and fascination for generations to come. Why does the story of Cropsey continue to resonate with us? Perhaps it's because it taps into our primal fear of the unknown, our fear of the darkness that lurks just beyond the edge of our perception. Perhaps it's because it reminds us that even in the most civilized of societies, there are dark corners where evil can thrive. Or perhaps it's because the story of Cropsey reminds us that the line between myth and reality is often blurred, that the monsters we create in our imaginations can sometimes become terrifyingly real. The real-life case of Andre Rand demonstrates that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are not supernatural creatures, but human beings capable of unspeakable acts of violence. It reminds us that we must be vigilant, that we must protect the vulnerable, and that we must never forget the victims of those who prey on the innocent. The legend of Cropsey, therefore, serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the darkness that exists within us and around us. It is a story that forces us to confront our fears, to examine our prejudices, and to acknowledge the fragility of our sense of security. So the next time you hear a rustle in the woods or feel a chill in the air, remember the story of Cropsey, remember the victims, remember the fear, and remember that even in the darkest of nights, hope and vigilance must prevail. Let us learn from the shadows and illuminate the path forward, so that the darkness of Cropsey may never again claim another innocent soul. The story serves as a reminder to look after our neighbors, to be aware of our surroundings, and to be a community that supports and protects each other, that we must not forget those who are vulnerable, and that we must always strive to create a safer world for everyone. The legend of Cropsey is a dark tapestry woven from fear, folklore, and the chilling reality of human cruelty. It is a story that will continue to haunt us, to challenge us, and to remind us that the monsters we fear are not always the ones we imagine. The psychological impact of the Cropsey myth on the children of Staten Island cannot be overstated. For generations, the story was used as a tool for parental control, a way to instill fear and obedience. But the fear it generated was not merely a fleeting childhood fright. It permeated the very fabric of their lives, shaping their perceptions of the world around them. The woods, once a place of adventure and exploration, became a source of dread, a place where the monstrous Cropsey lurked. The abandoned buildings, remnants of a forgotten era, became haunted spaces, filled with the echoes of his malevolent presence. This constant exposure to fear created a sense of pervasive anxiety, a feeling that danger was always lurking just beyond the periphery. The role of Willowbrook State School in amplifying the Cropsey legend is crucial. The institution's history of abuse and neglect created a fertile ground for dark narratives. Let the story of Cropsey serve as a somber reminder of the importance of community, of vigilance, and of compassion. Let us learn from the shadows and strive to create a world where the darkness of fear and violence can no longer thrive. Let us remember and let us never forget